Hi guys, welcome back to the Law of Attraction podcast. My name is Laura, as you know, and we've started an interview series. So we started last week with Chris Curley. Haven't watched that already? Go back and watch it. And today I am here with the lovely Jamie Vasilyan. And Jamie is a hypnotherapist and he specialises in ADHD. So Jamie, tell me a little bit about what you do.
Hi Laura.
Hello.
Oops, I haven't got the microphone there. There it is. There you go. Hi. Thanks for having me here, Laura. And
You're welcome.
Yeah, what do I do? Yeah, I'm a hypnotherapist and I work with people with ADHD. I specialise in ADHD hypnosis. Originally, I worked with anyone that would want to be hypnotised.
Yeah.
I tended to work with people with anxiety, stress, depression, and trauma. That was the main kind of people that I'd end up working with.
Yeah,
and
we worked
randomly.
together. You were my hypnotherapist, and that's how
Yeah.
I met you. So, and you were instrumental in a lot of my own personal change and a lot of
Wow.
the stuff that you've sort of taught me when I was going through it. Actually, I've taken it into my own practice. So,
Wow. Brilliant.
Wow.
Wow.
I'm really glad to have you on the show actually because I've talked about you quite a lot to
Really?
people and clients.
Excellent.
Yeah, because you've been instrumental in a lot of my change personally. So, I don't know if I'd have the business
Brilliant.
I've got without you.
Wow, that's amazing to hear. Wow, that's really amazing to hear. Obviously, you're an ex-client and it confidential and all that kind of stuff. But obviously, we I can say this. We did kind of know each other previously, and you're on my Facebook. So over the years, I've seen in our sessions, I saw the transformation. I like to use the word flowering. So like you see a person it's like a flower and it opens up. I saw that happening. A lot of the things that you're working on began to actually happen. And it was almost like you seem to go deeper with the process. And I've watched you over the years and just things have just watched you, just keep on going. And it's been amazing to kind of observe that.
I've loved watching your process because obviously when I met you, we met out in the free party scene. So I don't mind saying that.
Oh no, I don't mind. I love my parties. Anyone, let me know if there's a free party on at the moment.
Probably not so much, and I know
meant to be illegal, but hey,
from Monday
it's down
okay.
now. The station's going to get closed down. It's my fault.
No, it's okay. We speak truth here, so whatever that truth may be. And so, I think certainly when I met you, obviously we met as friends, as guys, people to party together. And then, I found out that you were a hypnotherapist, and I've seen your journey actually from where I met you. And I think when this must have been, it must have been, I don't know, 2011 or something, over 10 years ago.
It
certainly.
Was. Oh my God, yeah.
I know, right? How old are we? And I've seen your trajectory and the way that you've changed your practice and actually where that your focus has gone. So I see that you're working now with people who've got ADHD and ADD, and I love your hypnotherapy name now because that's really good. Like the ADD Advantage is really good. Down words there, I love it. And so I've watched your sort of process. So, and I, as a teacher, I'm a teacher as well. So I work with a lot of people who've got ADHD and a lot of people who've got ADD.
Wow.
And I've always been interested to see actually the effect that hypnotherapy could have on that. What do you find with that? How much change can you kind of implement with hypnotherapy for ADHD?
Well, it really does. In a way, it's quite complex, but let's just say you're going to see some kind of change happen to profound transformations. It really just depends on how many sessions they're willing to have, and also it kind of seems like sometimes there's certain kinds of people that seem ready for it or seem to be in that frame of mind for it.
Yeah, totally.
I'd say I see results with basically everyone, but some people, it's like anything, I guess. Some people seem to get better results or more results than others, but it's difficult to quantify these things. I've got to be careful with that because the way I like to look at it is if you change direction by just 1 degree, it might only be a small shift, but it's what happens over a long period of time.
Yes,
that 1 degree, you'll end up somewhere completely different than where you started. So, for example, when I'm sharing things with people, in any capacity, talking, writing, I suppose podcasting or whatever, or with a client, I like to think, well, even if there's just one thing that person resonates with, and if they resonate with it, they're more likely to go off and do that thing. And if that one thing that they take away, that they stick to it, that they make it part of their lives, doesn't mean they have to do it every day, because a big bugbear with people with ADHD, oh, I was doing really well, and then and then I stopped doing it, and now I feel really bad, and so this guilt and shame about not sticking to something all the time. And what I do is I help to unravel that and just say, well, that's fine. Like, if you fall off the horse, get back on it. Why turn it into a big deal? Why go, oh, it's the ADHD that makes me do that? I can't be 100% consistent. Well, maybe the most consistent people in the world aren't 100% consistent.
No.
Part of consistency is, oh, okay, am I overall committed to that goal, or that my values, or the direction I want to go in? Okay, so I fall off the horse. Fine, I'm going to dust myself off and get back on, which is exactly what young children do. Learning to walk, talk, you fall over, you have an accident. You don't really want everyone screaming and shouting at you, telling you that you fell over when you were just learning to walk.
I
you don't scream and shout at yourself. You
No.
just kind of get on with the process. And so that's kind of what how I get my clients to think. So it depends on the client. But like I say, one small shift that can be radical. And I can't always see that. They may not always be able to see that. Sometimes you only see that further in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
When it's that small shift.
Absolutely. Like 1 degree. I mean, something that I noticed when I was kind of working with you at the time, I was like, okay, it's really nice and relaxing, but you don't see the change. And I think some people, because of like the media view of what hypnotherapy is, people see kind of like stage hypnotherapy, and people like Darren Brown and people like that. And so they've got a really kind of like wrong perception of what hypnotherapy actually is. And so they think that they're going to go into this weird trance and they're going to wake up and you'll have changed everything. And actually that's not how, proper clinical hypnotherapy works. It taps into this, into your subconscious. And like you say, you can turn 1 degree, and that 1 degree looks like tiny, like minimalistic in the beginning, but 1 degree ends up being like 100 degrees of further down the road.
Right.
This is something I noticed with you.
Okay, this is massive. We were almost like getting into the deep end already, and we've only been there for a few minutes. But basically, I think this is one of the biggest kind of things that we need to understand if we want. So we're talking about small changes that add up over time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Into something that appears more obvious, but may not be obvious at the time.
Yeah.
Now, that can seem like a cop-out to some people. Oh, I really thought you were going to go like that, and I'm going to come out one session and be like transformed. Well, I wouldn't necessarily want to say, no, it's not like that. It's possible. Sometimes it does happen like that. However, the beauty of this is that we start to grasp what true transformation and progression and success is all about. Because it's not about thinking that what should happen is that, I don't know, you see some marketing thing, some advertisement, and then it says, have you been looking for the answer? You tried this, that, and none of it worked. Well, I went for the same problem as you, and overnight I had this big transformation. Do this. Here's my 7-step system to change your life in 30 days. So you've got all this kind of way of thinking, and this way of thinking about change, progress, success, transformation is unrealistic. Normally it's not like that. And this has become really paramount in my work with myself with ADHD, and also with clients with ADHD, just passing on what I've learned, how I've learned to overcome ADHD, and to the same things that they've gone through, and turn it into something good. That it, in a sense, it works out for me rather than seems to be going against me. It's like that. I want to get religious here, but I think is it something in the Bible where it says, like, everything is working out for me, kind of thing. You make all things work for me. It's kind of like that. So rather than seeing everything as a problem and it's all fighting against you, I've got ADHD and I've got this tendency to do that, and I can't stop myself from doing this, and I try and change, but you start kind of letting go of it and going, well, wait a minute. There's a bigger process here, something bigger than ADHD. And what if things are working for me rather than against me? And one of the things that people with ADHD do, maybe it's a common theme, and it's going to apply. I think it applies to lots of people. Doesn't matter whether you've got ADHD or not. So anyone listening, this applies to everyone, unless of course you've already figured this out, which is the biggest lie, which comes through marketing. It kind of comes through Hollywood and stuff like that as well. Like, falling head over heels in love with someone immediately and living happily ever after. Finding the magic key or solution, the 7-step system that's going to change your life overnight with a 30-day money-back guarantee if it doesn't work, but it's going to work because it's so good. All this kind of stuff. And the reality is that it doesn't necessarily always work like that.
Yeah.
And it's funny what you said about how it appeared to be to yourself, because when I went through my big transformation in 2011, if I tell the story, it sounds like I changed overnight, which I kind of did.
Yeah.
But it does leave out all of the different stages and steps before that point.
Yeah.
So if you include everything up to that point, you go, oh, wait a minute, maybe he didn't change overnight. But because some of these things can seem quite sudden. It's like a wave building up to a crescendo, and then, or a snowball effect. And once the ball starts to roll and it hits a certain speed, you go, wow, what a transformation. But the point is that ball had to build momentum first. It had to have some force to push that ball to get it to roll, and which took effort. And it started to speed up, and it started to almost move under its own volition. But that's, so it's kind of both, but it's how it appears to us, I think, is where the confusion can be. So it kind of is an overnight transformation, but there's all of those steps leading up to it, such as if a client was to contact me, they can have a big shift in just the first session.
Yeah.
If not the first two, where they get the first lot of hypnosis, because in the first session I don't do hypnosis, I just do coaching.
Yeah.
But they can have a big shift in that short period of time. Maybe not something that you might see in some marketing advertisement for, hey, 30 days down the line I was a millionaire, or anything silly like that. But more along the terms of someone could be clinically depressed. They could be depressed for many, many years, but they've started to see the light. They've had, like, what would you call it? They can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, like an epiphany.
And they have a little breakthrough, but that little thing to them is massive. That's big to them. And you get them to focus on that, and it starts to build and build and build. And with ADHD, we tend to have, I know I did, this idea that, what if I could change the ADHD? What if I just didn't have to have it anymore? You realize that maybe it's not how it works. I'm still going to have it. But what if I could kind of learn to control it? And then you get so far and you feel, well, I can't fully control it. What if and this kind of thing goes on and on and on. And you're looking for that magic bullet. And you struggle to find it. And the funny thing for me was, I feel like the magic bullet for me, in a sense, was realizing in 2011, when I had my big breakthrough, was that it wasn't. So, for example, I have this. So a parent has a child with ADHD. They put their child on a special diet. They see some improvements, but it's not enough. So they come off the diet after maybe a month. So they've really stuck to it. They've done really well at sticking to it. They come off the diet after a month, and then they put the child on something else, like could be some kind of CBT or something else, some form of some system or therapy that they might do, whatever it might be, some supplementation, I don't know, but they do that for another month and they get some results, but it's not enough. Maybe they go into exercise or something and they get some results, but it's not enough, and they go, we've tried everything, but none of it was enough. But where people are missing this is, or some people are missing it, is what if you kind of what percentage of the exercise, what percentage does that improve your symptoms? Oh, maybe 10-15%. Interesting. So how much did the diet improve your symptoms? 10%. Okay, so we're now 35%. What about when you put them on that CBT program? How much do you think that improved their symptoms? Maybe about another 10-15%. If you add all of that up, it's a lot. You're seeing a radical transformation, but then it might seem like a lot to do simultaneously. However, here's the key. This is what I discovered in 2011. This, in a sense, is my magic bullet, but at the same time, I think it's more realistic and honest, because for me, this is like the key, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's instantaneous. The transformation that you get, it's just, I feel this is the optimal way to get change to happen. And that is, you do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and a little bit of this. You put it all together, and what you get is a recipe. If you want to bake a cake, you got to have a little bit of that and a bit of this, and you make it. It may taste right, it may not rise, it may have too much sugar, it may have too much flour, whatever it is. It might not be at the right temperature. It's actually quite a complex thing. But essentially, it's a recipe. It's like you could go out and get supplements, right, for a condition that you might have, I don't know, and you get all the supplements separately, and then you look at the bill at the end. You ever done this? Like, oh my God, I'm paying like 15 quid for that bottle, 10 for that one, and then 20 for that, and suddenly you're clocking up like hundreds of pounds. I want to sound really American then and say dollars, but anyway, you clock up hundreds of pounds of dollars, and however, you could buy all of it all in one go, all in a bottle, and it's got all of the same ingredients. And it could be a fraction of the price as well. Sometimes it might sometimes be more, but often it can actually work out less. The amounts in there may not be as much, however, as all the separate ingredients. So often people will opt for getting each supplement separately and say, right, I need that, and that, and I need, I'm going to have to get them separately because I need a high dosage of this, that, and that. Now, there might be some truth to that. But there is some phenomenon that I call synergy, where everything seems to operate to synergize together, and so less can be more. So there's less of all of these, but when they're all together like that, they have this kind of synergistic effect, and that's what I believe happens. That's how transformation is truly possible in people, and radical transformation is when we don't just focus on try this for a bit. Great, you stuck to it, you did it. Hey, but it's not good enough. Go on to something else. Try something else. Instead, we realize that it's multiple different things. And I got this idea through my transformation 2011 through Ken Wilber, the philosopher Ken Wilber.
Yeah, I know Ken Wilber. Not personally.
Yeah, and you look into stuff, it can get a bit complicated. But one thing he said when I first got into him in 2011 was looking at studies on people doing weight training and exercise. And he said you get the person weight training that's never meditated before, and you get them to meditate, and when they do both, they get great results in both departments.
That's interesting. I weightlift.
Yes.
And I never noticed if when I meditate I lift more. Well,
actually, I certainly have, but I mean, obviously these kind of effects, they ran studies to see the effects, how pronounced they are, how noticeable they are. I'm not, bit like we talked about earlier. So, but lo and behold, they found that the weightlifters that were doing the meditation were getting better results in their weightlifting. But the meditators who took up weightlifting were now getting better results in both departments. They too were getting better results in meditation.
Yeah.
So there's some kind of synergistic effect. Now we can break this down in a reductionist way and say, well, maybe it's because when you meditate, you're more conscious and you have better recovery. You have lower cortisol and you recover better from the exercise. But that for me, it can be a bit of a reductionist explanation. That is, however, true, but reductionist. You can say the person got better at meditation because now they could focus better. Their brain was releasing all those brain chemicals. That too is true, but to some degree is reductionist.
Yeah.
What if it's actually both?
Yeah.
And kind of like both and neither? What if it's some higher level synergistic effect between exercising the physical body and exercising the mind? So in Ken Wilber's model, you have the physical body, and then he goes this idea like there's a subtle body. So subtle body, you can get kind of a bit esoteric on that. So subtle body can be where like people meditate and they imagine energies and chakras and you always, but on a simple level, everyone experiences the subtle body or energy of ourselves. And we experience it as daydreaming, imagining things in our imagination, imagining colors, dreaming. When we're in that kind of dreamy, half awake, visual kind of, semi-visual state or whatever, we all have that kind of experience, sense of energies and colors or whatever. Then we have what's called the causal body, which is what some people experience in deep meditation. Um, so you got gross, subtle, causal. To keep it simple, another way we can think about this to make it even simpler is mind, body, and soul.
Yeah.
And that suggests that human beings are a tripart being. We're mind, body, and soul.
Yeah.
And so Robin, if I just think I'm a hunk of flesh, like meat, I go and see a doctor because I've got a condition.
Yeah.
And if I believe I'm just a hunk of flesh, he says, take this tablet, it's chemical.
Mm-hmm.
Boom.
Yeah.
That's reductionism. I'm just feel like the only way to deal with my challenges is through medicine and through brain chemicals.
And interestingly,
I'm not disputing that,
yeah.
but it's partial. It's a partial approach to not only human change and transformation, but also it's based on a partial understanding of what actually makes a human. I don't believe that we're just hunks of flesh.
Me either.
There's more to us than that. We're emotional, psychological, and without getting religious or sounding religious, because it doesn't have to be, but also spiritual, mind, body, and soul.
Yeah.
So you're going to say something then?
Well, I find that quite interesting as well, because I talk to a lot of my clients about the holistic approach, and I'm very much in holisticism or holism or whatever you'd like to reduce that to, about the fact that we are mind, body, spirit, and you have to treat the great, the whole being, and in all of the dimensions to be able to kind of actually be able to,
right.
To be able to treat somebody. And what's interesting, I find, and you'll probably find this, a lot of ADHD people go to doctors and they get treated with really quite hardcore drugs. And the way that they look at you there is that they don't even just treat you as one whole hunk of flesh. They want to break your hunks of flesh into other pieces. You go and see an ear, nose and throat doctor, you see a brain doctor, you see a foot doctor. And I find, as much as I'm not, shitting on, Western medicine, because actually, they're amazing at acute stuff. You've got your leg hanging off, I'll be there in A&E. But, when it comes to, like when it comes to chronic conditions where, it's long-term health problems, actually we see that they're not as good at that. Because I don't think they look at people as the whole. And like you're saying about the synergy, it's not just, the way that you're thinking. It's not the way that you're feeling. It's not just the, what you're feeding and nourishing your body with. It's about the synergy of all of these things and bringing it all together. And I think that's what's lovely about some of the, part of the reason why I became a life coach instead of going down kind of the clinical psychotherapist route was because I wouldn't be bound so much by these rules, about what I could and couldn't say and what I couldn't do, and I think when
interesting.
Do you find that? Because I know that you've retrained.
Yeah, no, it's interesting saying that. I'm really identifying with that, because to tell a kind of a little brief story, I don't know if this was a cop out, but I wanted to be a psychologist at one point.
Yeah, same.
And what happened was when I was diagnosed with ADHD, and this was before I had my breakthrough with ADHD, where I basically came out of clinical depression. I had depression like my whole life. I came out of it. And then I made a massive improvement in my ADHD in that same year. Massive improvement. It was like night and day.
Yeah.
But not some point before that. So my diagnosis was 2004. So not long after that, I did go on it's one of the good things that came out of that actually was, yes, I was given meds, and I was disappointed with that because the meds didn't really work.
Yeah.
I found that they calmed me down. I felt kind of drugged up, like I was stoned. And I had side effects like Tourette syndrome. I developed Tourette syndrome.
Wow.
I had dark eyes. I had dry mouth. And doctor said chew gum, and I said it's not working. I'm really dehydrated. Now he didn't know, and there are, and I know from working with clients with ADHD that they will go to see a psychiatrist and have medication, but they're going back maybe multiple times to check their heart and stuff like that. And they may go on a drug that they have a, heart palpitation, so they have to come off that drug and then go on to something else. Or change the dosage. So I was with the doctor, and he's starting on a very low dose, 10 milligrams, very low, and people can go up to 100 milligrams or something. Really, and for me, this was really powerful, and I had all these side effects. But anyway, part of me kind of thinks, well, what if it did work? Would I be somewhere different than where I am now? Maybe I would have actually improved more. It's funny that, because the research shows that over long periods of time, there isn't any difference between the two groups. It levels off.
Yeah,
It's short term.
tolerance.
Yeah, it's short. That's one of the factors is tolerance, and the other thing is is an initial improvement because the drug is powerful. So it's kind of being a race, and it's like, but then you start to slow down because you haven't got stamina.
Yeah.
And obviously, if a person doesn't go down the medication route, whether that's by choice or maybe they don't have a choice, and this is true of about 20% of people, will either can't take the medication because of side effects or they don't want to. And so what happens if you can or don't want to? I guess you look for something else.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened to me.
Did they
right?
offer any of that?
What happened was there was I think there was mention of CBT, and I didn't really chase that up, and it was a massive long waiting list. Now this was back in 2004. I remember I've had a few clients in a similar situation that I was back then recently, saying, okay, my daughter or son, I want them to have treatment, but the doctor said CBT is going to be it's like a year waiting list. One said 2 years. God. 2 years to wait to see the CBT therapist. So they come and do hypnotherapy. The wonderful thing is the hypnotherapy I do, a lot of the time it is cognitive. It is partly based in CBT, but it's so much simpler, so much more fun, so much easier to stick to, and you got the hypnosis side of it, which amps up the results. I like to jokingly think of it sometimes as CBT on steroids. So, but anyway, coming back to what we were talking about was, so I didn't do the CBT. I just came off the meds and I did my own thing. But one thing that I did get from my diagnosis, or at least I found out, it was, I assumed that if you didn't have a diagnosis of ADHD that you couldn't get onto this course. It was for people with ADHD. We all had ADHD in the class. And it was a mindfulness class.
Nice.
And that was really good because here's a book, Lydia Zylowska, Mindfulness Prescription for Adult ADHD. We've got to see that, obviously, on the video. We've got to see that. But anyway, I showed the cover of the book. And she did research on this, and also is Susan Smalley from the UCLA. And so they've done studies, and some other studies by other people have done it as well, on mindfulness and ADHD. And they found, lo and behold, yes, we can actually do mindfulness. Can you believe it? And so I went on to this mindfulness program, and it was wonderful. I remember having a little cup with you passed a cup round. You look in the cup, and it's like, oh my god, it's a sultana. I really don't like sultanas. It's a really, I just didn't like them. They're like, they're gross. Something that I really despised back then. And she said, okay, just look in the cup. You're allowed to look now, see what's in the cup. Of course, some people are like, I like those. Some people are like, ooh. Said, now you can pick it up. Once you've studied it with your eyes, pick it up, look at it, study it, move it in your finger, like feel how it feels. Smell it. So I smelled it, and it smelled of cinnamon, which I like. Now, I'd never smelled a sultana before. I don't think I've ever decided to smell one, but I'm being asked to smell it, and I could smell something that I like. So maybe my brain was starting to change its appreciation of a sultana. Then she said, put it onto your lips and just hold it there. Then pull it onto your teeth and begin to slowly bite in. Feel it with your tongue and then bite into it. So biting into the sultana. And then it was, now begin to then chew it very slowly. How all children are meant to chew. You're meant to chew your food at least 20 times before you swallow. All that kind of stuff. But anyway, so we're doing that, and it was really bizarre. So I've done this. And it was really quick. I was like, actually, sultanas, they're not what I thought they were. And of course, me and you and many of the listeners will understand what's happening is that the brain is starting to, we have these kind of knee-jerk reactions, and our brain tends to simplify reality and block a lot of things out and all this kind of stuff, and jump to conclusions. We have change blindness and cognitive biases. We have all these things going on, and so you get this idea that sultana's not a nice thing, and you avoid it. I remember a friend of my mum when I was a kid said about mushrooms. So we were eating spaghetti bolognese, and my mum always put a lot of mushrooms in there. I think peas, and other people do their spaghetti bolognese, but that's how I like it. It was lovely. And she said, oh, I know I don't like mushrooms in my spaghetti bolognese. So of course I said, why not? She said, well, it reminds me of slugs.
Oh yeah, I used to hate mushrooms, and I eat them now, but I've got to cook them specifically because otherwise they're a bit sluggy, aren't they? But
Right.
you know,
Yeah. Well, she said that, and suddenly I didn't like mushrooms. Every
yeah,
time I tried to eat a mushroom, it reminded me of a slug, and I thought, you know what, she's right.
yeah,
But I never thought this before.
no,
And what happened was, effectively, I'd been accidentally hypnotized by what
mm,
she believed and what she
yeah,
said. So she had hypnotized me without realizing it. Of course, now this is really cool. Maybe
jump
come
away.
back to this, but it's like I was going to talk about that point about, um, but anyway, I feel like I'm going on a tangent. But
Fine.
briefly say that this might help listeners understand why it's really important not to be superstitious about hypnosis or afraid of it, or think, oh, my mind is too strong for hypnosis,
Oh,
these kinds
yeah.
of things. Because what you understand about hypnosis, if you understand how it works,
Hmm.
you will actually have, doesn't matter how strong you think your mind is right now, if you understand it, your mind will be even stronger. You will know when someone's trying to hypnotize you. Not like they're going to swing a watch in front of your face and say
No.
sleep, but you will know, for example, how to figure out, like in this experience, how it is that just what someone else says or believes may be influencing what you believe
Mm.
and your experiences. And this can apply in so many ways in our lives. How people influence other people to believe different things, or try and sell them stuff, or
Yeah.
try and get them to change their voting, maybe,
Mainstream
or
media.
and look at everything in the mainstream media right now. There's so much
All
manipulation,
hypnosis.
and we
Yeah.
know that the governments have their that they consult psychologists. They've admitted this,
Mm.
but of course, and I'm not sure who it is in Australia. I'm lost on detail here, but there was an Australian politician that said, yes, we are frightening people a lot about COVID-19, because we didn't think that if we didn't frighten them enough, that they wouldn't take it seriously enough.
Mm.
And now we've got the opposite problem. Everyone's scared to death. They don't want to leave their house, even when they want them to.
Yeah.
But the point is, if we know about hypnosis, because it's just a natural part of our mind,
Hmm.
we know what's going on and we can do something about it. But if we don't, we're actually more easily hypnotizable.
Hmm.
Shock horror. So anyway, so I had this experience with this mindfulness. We did other stuff like body scanning, kind of
Hmm.
like a meditative practice, which I was
Yeah.
aware of because I've been meditating since I was, believe it or not, since 7 years old. It's
Yeah.
crazy. And yoga. We did yoga too.
Beautiful.
And this was, out of all the things I did at that point for ADHD, that was the thing that actually I would say helped the most, was doing that. Um, but the thing that put me off psychology, this is how we got to this story, and we
Yes.
went into another little kind of
I completely
tangent
forgot. No, it's
relating to
fine.
that.
It's
But
all
that was,
tangents
I
here.
didn't plan that. It's random. It just kind of seemed to offshoot out of that experience. Was how I was put off psychology, because the teacher in the mindfulness class, she had ADHD too.
Mm.
She was a psychotherapist, and she wanted to become she was doing her PhD. So she wanted, yeah. And what happened was, she sat with us near the end of our classes, and it's wonderful. I had a wonderful experience there. It was a bloody brilliant experience that I had there. It was wonderful. And we got near the end of it, and she told us that she didn't think that she would be able to do her PhD. And we're all like, of course you can. You're amazing. Of course, if anyone can do it, you can. And she said, I know I can do it, she said, but not in the time frame I've got. I've got all of the extra support that I can get, all of the help I can get, she said, but it's just that the level of, you go from writing your degree, and now she's got, it's far more complicated, it's far more written, all the references get all more complicated. And she said it was just at a higher level of organization that she's, at this point in time, she's not ready for right now. And there's a good point to that. It's sometimes and I've had to realize this. It's not that you're not ready for something, is that you've made progress, acknowledge your progress, but maybe in the time frame that you've got, that you can't necessarily get to where it is you want to get to, and you need to be realistic. Otherwise, you kind of, being unrealistic is not healthy. So you get all the positive thinking people saying, no, I demand it, be positive, want to keep
Yeah.
going. And it's like, well, but maybe she had a realistic point. And I don't know what's happened since then. I must admit, I didn't keep in touch with her back then with my ADHD. I was really bad at keeping in touch with anyone, which is quite a sad thing that I regret sometimes, all the wonderful people I've met over the years. But So anyway, I don't know whether she actually went back to it, but she said she was going to. She was happy with what she had. She was a psychotherapist, and she'd done an MA and stuff after that, and she was happy with that, and to carry on from there. And she said, "I feel that I'm still able to achieve what I want to achieve, just in a different way."
Yeah.
And then I saw a friend of mine, very good friend, who I do know to this day, and. Hey, I do keep some of my friends. I'm not that forget. Always
Same. I'm really bad at that, to be honest.
Yeah. I think it's partly a bit of it's like a two-way thing. So, some friends say, "Oh, you never contact me," and I just think,
you've never contacted
really
me.
bad, but you never contact me.
Yeah, I get the same.
Yeah. So, you got to kind of think the other way around, and then we would all be more likely to be in contact with each other. And then if there's either of us are more forgetful or whatever you call it, then we might kind of solve that. But anyway,
in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. So she said she could do it through another means, that she was still able to help people. Now, my friend Phil said, he said it is he's very good at seeing the what would you say, the some people are more optimistic and some are more pessimistic. I wouldn't say he's pessimistic, but he sees the what do you call it, when there might be a bit of a problem there. He sees that, and he points out all the possible problems. Now, that's really good, though. That's really good, because you can be too optimistic, you can be too positive. You do need to acknowledge those potential hurdles, and then create a plan of how to get over them. That will increase your level of success.
I would say to my clients, expect the worst, hope for the best. So
exactly.
You make that plan,
expect the worst, hope for the best, and plan for those things that might go wrong. Exactly. So he said, yeah, I've got this friend. He said, you do realize he's a clinical psychologist, and when he was doing his doctorate, he was asked to work with various psychiatrists at various places, and he was part of the process of getting those kids on their medication, and doing some things that he didn't feel comfortable with. I don't know if this is the right reaction, but this was the reaction that I had. I'm very passionate. So I was like, no, I can't do that. I am not going to be involved in working with kids. And I'm saying, and getting them part of that process. I don't know if I could handle it, to be honest. No, I'm not anti-medication. I think I was at some point. I was back then. I did become anti-medication because of my own experience and biases. But today I'm not. Sometimes I do see some clients that I can see that, and they're rare. Most clients don't appear to need medication to get results from hypnosis. But there's one or two where you think, I wish you did take your meds. And it might just give us enough focus in your session for you to get some results out of the opportunity that you've got right now. So he told me that, and that kind of put me off. And I was actually at university doing psychology, and my results in essays were always like 85 plus. And I had a friend that did a 2-1 in English literature, and she turned around to me when I complained that my results in essays had gone down to about 40-50%. She said, but that's not that bad. She said, I got through on that. And I went, what do you mean? I said, well, I got 2-1 on those kind of results. Really? I said, yeah. I went, well, I said, no. I said, that to me, that's proof that I'm not meant to go in this direction. That shows that, and I mean, it's a self-confirming prophecy in a way. Of course it is. If I decide that and I feel less motivated by it, then I'm going to do less well at that particular thing. I'm going to underperform. But then I was taking it as proof of that. So I was quite emotional about this, quite passionate about it. Today, like I say, I've calmed down about that. I realize for some people medication can help, but it is definitely not the be all and end all. We are worth more than medication. Let me put it that way. We can achieve so much more, far more. I mean, just a diagnosis and then to be given meds. I remember my psychiatrist saying, when I said I read in a psychiatric manual and doing my research that it was meant to be a short-term thing and it was a last-ditch attempt. However, it seems to be the normal response. He smiled and he said, well, most of my clients are happy to continue taking them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
And I suppose how I built these biases that I had around my experiences and decided I'm like anti this direction. So I decided I'm not going down the psychology clinical route. And then I realized, well, I've been into hypnosis since I was very young, and it's been quite miraculous in what I've been able to do with that. And part of my breakthrough was a good friend of mine. I didn't know her until 2006. She just turned up, Sarah Bailey. And we just randomly met at a Mind, Body, Spirit festival. And we felt like we knew each other, like we'd always known each other. And we had a massive, couple of hours chat after this festival thing. And she drove me home, and we stayed best friends. And the thing that happened was, turns out she was an NLP master and as far as I'm concerned, a master hypnotherapist, because that's just a word. But her training was done. It was in America, in the States. And it's weird. It's like if you train to be a hypnotherapist in the US, it doesn't mean anything over here. It's just a piece of paper. In America, one state to another, you're not considered to be a real hypnotherapist because you trained in a different state. So, but anyway, she taught me hypnosis, well, more hypnosis. She started to teach me what I kind of think like the real, impressive stuff, and with her help, I was able to make improvements. It was still a rough ride, but it was like she would coach me, she would hypnotize me, and I would also call it like co-coaching. So we would do sessions for each other. But I was learning from her more about these things, more in depth. She gave me her course from the United States, which was Training Trances by John Overdurf and Julia Silverthorne. And what I knew about hypnosis up to that point was really old-fashioned stuff, like listen to my voice, you're getting sleepy, and a hypnotic induction that goes on for an hour to get you into a state of hypnosis before I even give you the suggestions. Who's got like an hour and a half or 2 hours? But anyway, that's what I did the old-fashioned way. And I learned a bit more faster hypnosis through a Paul McKenna book, but it was very basic what was in the book, and I kind of strung it together myself in a way. And but then she gave me this course, and I studied it all in depth, just taking notes, listening, writing, and then I would also find people to practice on. And that's when I felt like I'd reached some kind of more mastery. I don't want to say mastery, because I know hypnosis is such an amazing art form, and you can go on forever with it. I think there's so much to it, but for me, it felt like I'd reached a point of mastery with it, doing some really impressive stuff and really sophisticated stuff, and that was part of my breakthrough. So Sarah, in a sense, was my best friend. But as a bonus, she was also my life coach. And as an extra bonus, this was all free, by the way, I also got to learn more about hypnosis, like the proper stuff, and coaching, and NLP. And she's into meditation and spiritual stuff too. So there was that as well that we shared together. And from that, by 2011, when I finally had my big breakthrough, and what was interesting about that was, I was kind of like going upwards, but up and down. It was really quite erratic. It was quite like being in two worlds. On one hand, it felt like, I'm being really positive and doing this stuff with Sarah. But on the other hand, I still had I was still mixing with the wrong people. And there are a lot of things I wasn't willing to let go of yet. And I was still living in my old world of, I was diagnosed with ADHD. I was a complete and utter mess. I want to swear now. I was a fuck up, basically.
Yeah.
Can we swear on this channel?
Go for it.
Oh, well, damn. I assume this is for adults. So I was, I was a mess, and I had addictions in different ways. I was attention seeking. I was hyper, and on, basically. And what happened was, it was over 7 years. But it seemed to be the radical transformation in 2011. So one of the things that led up to that was 2009, that I decided I was thinking about going back to work. But I was quite scared, to be honest, because for almost 10 years, I was out of work. 10 years.
A long time.
I was on disability money. I was on disability benefits. That was my lifestyle. And it was kind of comfortable, especially at that age, because, you know, I was young and being stupid. It was just going out, clubbing, all that kind of stuff, you know. And the idea of me getting my head sorted and mending my heart and healing, shall we say, just seemed far-fetched. I find it hard to believe, and that was part of the big challenge with this. It was like a roller coaster ride. There was a lot of dark shadow there that was facing as well.
Yeah,
and a lot of doubt, distraction, and so Sarah, over and over, you know, reminding me, Jamie, you're not here for that. You know, what is it that you really want? You can have that. You need to start moving towards it. Keep going. And so 2009, I thought, oh, maybe I could do some voluntary work. And I did. And it was in an autistic unit in a local school.
Yeah.
And that was wonderful. I did 2 years. And you got to remember, previously to this, I used to do sales. Awful, stressful job. Could do quite well at it. And I've found a lot of parallels between sales, marketing, and hypnosis, and any other form of communication, to be honest. All these things cross over. So it's, you know, still learn a lot from that. But I got into working with children with autism, and some of those were also dual diagnosis with ADHD and other conditions. And that was wonderful. I loved it for 2 years. Learned a lot about working with them and about myself, and how it was almost like this two-way process. I was learning about myself in relationship to them, how it helped them, but it was helping me.
Yeah. I find that a lot with my clients. Do you find that with your clients? Like,
a
lot of the time,
all clients.
You know, every time I have a client that comes with a new problem, actually, it's something that's almost being triggered in me as well. So as I'm helping them, I'm helping myself. And we got a lot of like parity between your story and my story. And actually, the more people that I talk to who have gone through these processes and have become the wounded healer, you know, that have gone through that paradigm of being somebody who's a fuck up and has learnt, you know, learnt these abilities to help themselves. Actually, they're the ones that have struggled the worst. And I always sort of think, you know, a lot of people that I went to when I was really, really bad, and like you said, you know, I suffered with really bad depression, had addictions, all of these other sort of problems, very, very dark, shadowy stuff that just kind of overtaken my life. And a lot of the people that you would meet along the side, which were like the clinical psychotherapists and the people who were in the sort of really like the normal things that you would get sent to, none of them really understood what I had gone through or what my life was like. So they couldn't, you know, you couldn't really help really, because they don't know what you're talking about. And I think that some of the beauty when I think the whole reason why the universe kind of creates these really, really desperate times for people like you and I, and without kind of falling into the ego of like, you know, the furu, fake guru kind of bullshit. But I think some of the reason why people like you and I have gone through these processes being so seriously wounded is so that we can go on to this transition to heal ourselves and therefore heal other people. And it's like, I say to my clients, like, if I heal you and you know how to heal yourself, then you can go and start this joy revolution where it's like, you know, the one rain, you know, the one raindrop in the ocean, it just kind of threads out. And I feel like that, like, you know, you triggered something in me, and then I've gone on and triggered it in other people, and it's such a beautiful process to watch people not only heal themselves but go on to heal other people, you know. And it seems like you've had that experience as well with like Sarah.
Very interesting, you know? Very interesting point. And I wonder if just the fact that someone has gone through that process without even mentioning that, without talking about it, that somehow just the fact that person is sitting there that has gone through that process, somehow that just the fact that that's happened, that may be itself enough for the possibility of change in another person.
Yeah, because it's hope, you know. Like my clients come to me often with no hope, and I'm like, let me be your faith system for a moment, because if I can do it, I'm not special. There's nothing special about me. If I can get myself out of, you know, I was suicidal, had drug addictions,
Right.
Really, really bad kind of coping strategies that looked in kind of anorexia,
Mm.
disordered eating, binge eating, the list goes on, just really, really destructive tendencies. And if I can take myself and have somebody trigger this process in me, then why can't I trigger the process in you? And a lot of people
Right.
are like, oh, I don't believe it. I don't think I can ever change. I don't think and it's like, okay, you don't need to believe in it at this current moment in time. Borrow my faith for the beginning, and you'll start to see actually little things will begin to change. And it's those ones that are really kind of faithful in the process, and it's just like trust the process, that actually you get that 1 degree that turns into 100 degrees longer further on, like we were saying earlier. And it's like, I think some people that are kind of stuck in that, like really going back to where we were, it's like that process of instant gratification. And I say to my clients, like, instant gratification is the road to hell, because it's the one where we say, I'm hurting, give me a painkiller of some form. And this is what I was doing. I was taking painkillers of some form, whether it be medication from the doctor, or whether it be, using sex as validation, or going out drinking too much, partying, smoking, whatever it was, anything to numb the pain, and it's this instant gratification that actually fucks you up more, because you get the side effects of stuff. And it's like all of that kind of that instant gratification thing seems to be pervasive across everything in our society. So it's like, you go to the doctor, you have a chronic condition, they want to give you a pain, they want to give you a pill and hope that will cure it. But when we start to look at the holistic side of things and actually looking at the human as a whole, you realize that this band-aid doesn't fix a gaping wound. You need to suture it, and suturing is painful and it's time consuming, but it will heal. And a lot of people don't want to do that work. They're not interested in it because it's fucking difficult,
Right. Yeah. You mentioned instant gratification. It kind of relates back to what kind of talked near the beginning about this idea of the magic bullet, and that you're going to have this transformation, which will be an overnight transformation. It's a metaphor I like is the idea that you've got the heating on, and someone says, "Oh, did you put the heating on? It's still a bit cold." And they go and check it. "Oh no, it's on. It's boiling." Well, yeah, it just hasn't heated the whole room up yet. And the bigger the room, it can take a bit longer, and all this kind of stuff. It's like that. It's like heating. It's like heating. So go and check. Oh yes, it's on. It's warm. And I think maybe sometimes when you're doing this work with people, where you're right, instant gratification is the road to hell. At the same time, when I think about when people go through these processes, that they can have, it doesn't have to take forever, because they also have a misunderstanding or a belief that I must get a lot worse before I get better, or this may never work. This might take forever. Or I'm difficult.
I've got to hit rock bottom. You're like, no.
Yeah. Oh, that one. I had that one too. Yeah, I had that one too. That I have to really hit rock bottom. I have to get. It's not like I haven't been for enough pain already. I need to go even further into my pain.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to attract it. Like, what if I got hit by a bus or something? Or I need to create some really massive, profound. It's almost like you want it to be like a movie. And again, we're coming back to Hollywood, the drama of the movie of Hollywood, and what a lot of the kind of the marketing ploys that are used. This idea that I was in hell, and then 30 days later I transformed, and it's like that. And it can sometimes appear like that, but it's not how it works. And I think you're right about instant gratification, that being a big problem generally. And I look at the world right now with what's going on. And it's now we're all meant to be locked up in our homes and stuff, and not being able to do this, not able to do that. And I'd imagine that the ones that are struggling the most and that will struggle the most are those that have been allowing themselves to have instant gratification, that have been allowing themselves to have the latest iPhone every 3 seconds. Our whole culture in recent years been designed, or is that way from however it got this way. I don't exactly know, but it's clearly a culture in which you're never happy enough with your phone. You've got to have the next phone, even though it's basically exactly the same as the last one. You can make up all the stories you want about, no, this iPhone is actually different. Why? Slightly different shape, or whatever it might be. Constant updates, fashions, the same kind of thing. And we live in a culture where we've gone from what we thought was this conservative or religious culture of where we feel like we've got no freedoms and it's harsh and it's controlling, and now we're all free. But the thing is, I like this idea of it's not an idea. In my experience, it's true. I want to quote one of my. I don't 100% believe what anyone else says, or Jordan Peterson. It is something that he said. He said, meaning is more important than happiness.
Yeah.
And whatever else you might think about Jordan Peterson's kind of ideas, I don't.
I love him.
I love him too, but I don't necessarily think everything he says is 100% accurate. He's got his biases like everyone else. I don't want to hear people going, "Oh, he's a right-wing Nazi."
No, because he's not. Come on, guys.
Come on, calm down. No, he's not.
He's a psychologist. Don't turn him into a politician. It's like
kind of somewhere. Yeah, he's kind of like more like old school left, really, or in the middle somewhere. But as far as I can tell, but a lot of things he says are really, 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 really important to hear. And this idea that meaning is more important than happiness. It is actually, in terms of values, maybe it should be higher than happiness, because if your only value is happiness, you can claim that if I take drugs, if I just do whatever I think makes me feel good in the moment, you can claim it makes you happy.
Yeah. Very sort of Satanistic idea, isn't it? Like, do what thou wilt. And it's like without any kind of, to go right off on a weird tangent, but that kind of idea of like what not, Christian Satanism, the philosophy of Satanism by, Anton LaVey is about do what thou wilt, and is about making yourself like the center of the universe. And I think actually, like, when you're talking about things with like the new phone, the new update, materialism, hypercapitalism, everything that we see in our modern world, is it that everybody feels like they're the center of the universe, and actually that, it's that kind of process that I need whatever makes me happy. If I'm happy, that's the most important thing.
Right.
And actually, it's not the most important thing, because happiness is just an emotion. It's an emotion that's very fleeting. It's very fickle. And I always say to my clients, like, you don't want to aim for happiness. Aim for contentment. Because contentment is like that sits in your belly and that resonates. Like, happiness is like is again that instant gratification thing. And like you say, you could take drugs. So go and bust some MDMA. You'll be happy for 12 hours, but will you have fixed yourself? Will you have done the work? Will you have served yourself in a way that actually is helpful to you? Probably not, because you're going to get a come down.
Right. It's fleeting, right? It's fleeting, and what we've got is almost like the old culture and the old way of being. For example, we a lot of the modern culture that we think of as the more liberal, egalitarian kind of equal rights, and the culture we got today. There's some wonderful things about modern culture, but there's also a lot of things that aren't so wonderful, and there is definitely an imbalance right now. We've gone too far in one direction, but nature has a way of wanting to balance that out.
Yeah, totally.
That's what nature does, right? And evolution, I believe there's an evolutionary spiral, and it will
from side to side.
and it's like a seesaw, and then the fulcrum point, the middle point, when we get to the next stage. But before that, we have that in between state, which is like, so like I think it's in nature, in many different forms. A good way of thinking about this is water. So you've got some ice and you melt it, you heat it, and it melts into water, and then the water, as you heat it more, begins to bubble and then steam. Yeah, and then it rises, and we can think about the weather when the water's going in that cycle up and down. It's a continual cycle, but at each kind of stage of that cycle, and they're clearly different. Ice is clearly different from water, and water different from condensation, and so on and so forth. But there's that point in the middle.
Yeah,
that point in the middle is chaos. However, that chaos in the middle, even when it's chaos, there is order in that chaos. And it starts to sound a bit like Illuminati now. I wrote like, oh my God, he's Illuminati. But basically, there is already. There is, but this is nature. There is some order in chaos. So if you get a ball and you bounce it in if it's a square or a rectangle, you bounce it in a box. If you follow it long enough and track its movements, although it's random, it will create nested triangles within each other. So there is actually an order to the chaos, to that randomness. And so right now, I believe we're in that in-between chaotic transitional state that you find in states of energy, matter. But of course, the mind, the psyche, is not separate from the culture and the greater organism of humanity on the planet with the earth. It's all goes through the same process of stages and transitions, and we're in that in between state. And the we've lived, it's like we've lived it up. We've gone from, long time ago, it was, religion and conservatism, all this kind of stuff. And it was, that's not very nice. We look back and think that's really bad. That's not fair. And now we've got all these freedoms, but it's almost like our freedoms have gone so far.
It's hedonistic now.
Now it's gone full circle that our freedoms are now threatening to take our freedom away. How paradoxical is that? And the reason why is because meaning is higher than happiness. And if you live in a culture where it's just about your freedoms, any people will do anything to get their freedoms. What do I mean by this? If you're addicted to your mobile phone, which people are, if we're addicted to the internet, which people are, if we're addicted to social media, look at all the arguments and the polarization on social media and the addiction that is there. I mean, they've set up addiction clinics now. It's recognized as an actual real addiction, just like drinking or smoking.
Like
is
dopamine
internet
detox?
It's
like it's all triggering dopamine. I mean, there's some really interesting people that are doing dopamine detox at the moment, which is about training your brain to not be like the Pavlovian dog that the bell rings and you're salivating. And this is what we're all in the system of, is like your phone bells and you're like, oh my God, I'm getting a dopamine shot. But I think in our society now, everybody is far too resonant in their ego. It's all ego. And what you were saying then about being on the, I don't know what you think about astrology, but we're about to come to, do you remember back in 2012, that was supposed to be like, according to the Mayan calendar.
We're going too deep now. What kind of audience are we talking to?
It's all right. But it's interesting because so back in 2012, we were supposed to have, the end of the world. It was supposed to be apocalypse in the Mayan calendar. And something that was interesting about what you were just saying about kind of like being very entrenched in materialism, and like we were having our day, and that's been since sort of the 1980s. In the last 250 years, the Great Conjunct, which happens every certain amount of years, but the Great Conjunct has always been in Earth signs in astrology. And in December 2020, the 21st of December 2020, the Great Conjunct is actually moving into air signs, and it's going to be in Aquarius. And I'm Aquarius, but it's supposed to be moving into Aquarius. And so this is something that's supposed to be changing from materialism into the more kind of philosophical, spiritualistic, much more kind of higher up, cerebral nature of human life. And I was listening to this the other day, and I was thinking, God, that's really interesting that in the last 250 years, the Great Conjunct has been apparent in the energy. So the energy of our universe has been in materialism and has been based in kind of like these earth energies, which is about kind of the ego, about serving man, about money, about all materialism, all those kind of things. And when you look at capitalism and things that have happened over the last 250 years, slavery, so on and so forth, you can really see that. Yeah. And it says, because the Gregorian calendar is incorrect in comparison to the Mayan calendar, I was listening to this, and they were saying actually the apocalypse that the Mayan were talking about is actually 2020. It's actually this December. And it's like, it's really interesting. And I'm just like watching this, and I'm not buying into it. I'm not saying this is definitely real or anything like that. I believe in astrology and I follow astrology. I think that there's a huge shifts for people, and you see a lot of...
Well, I got something to share with you.
Go on.
On this one. It's a bit far out. We've definitely changed topics. It's all related, but
I'm literally law of attraction. They know I'm far out, don't worry.
Yeah, you've got a different audience. I mean, we could talk, for example, about, the connections between ADHD and human evolution. I believe that there is a connection. I don't normally talk about this with mainstream audiences and clients, but someone has referred to ADHD before as attention dialed into a higher dimension. And there is some truth to this kind of way of looking at it. But anyway, so back in 2012, I actually was really into this, and I did give some talks on this.
Okay, beautiful. See, there was
about
a reason I was bringing this
2012, right? And it's funny, we're talking about this now because this does appear to be something on the menu. Is that right? The cosmic menu at the moment.
Yeah. And the energy is really powerful. And if you're tapped in, as much as people want to go, that's bullshit and it's woo woo and whatever. I'm clairsentient. I pick stuff up from other places.
Well, I would say, yeah, exactly. I do too. So I would say it like this. I would say that we may not. I feel like you. I'm kind of like, I can't explain it. As I've gotten older, I've become less about belief and more almost like kind of agnostic about things. For example, reincarnation. Does that exist? Well, I've had experiences of it.
Yeah, same.
But can I say that that means that reincarnation is true? I don't know. It might be a metaphor for something, or a way of explaining it, but it may not be. It may not fit the understanding. I've just got a big question mark. But I do not
think
dispute.
Also, if you think about law of attraction, maybe actually the universe is actually much more subjective than we think it is. So what you feel, what you believe, the same thing is like what we experience on this plane as humans, as the ego. You know, your self-fulfilling prophecy. If I think, therefore I am. You know, and that's quite clear. If you think hypnotherapy is not going to work, it isn't going to work. If you think that you're going to be a bum that's never going to succeed in life, you'll be a bum that never succeeds in your life, because it's kind of like you are what you think you are. And I wonder if the universe is that subjective as well. That there's some of this kind of the beauty of the chaos of it is that what you think your experience of the world will be, that is, and further on to dimensions and so forth, and dying and everything, maybe that's actually what you get. So if you believe in a heaven where you go up and meet your whatever, maybe that's what you get. If you believe in reincarnation, maybe actually the universe is a subjective experience.
I see what I do see what you mean. There's an amazing video I highly recommend on the topic of reincarnation. It's called Conscious Reincarnation. It's by Ken Wilber, and he talks about this, and he says that the level of evidence that you would expect for reincarnate, or that would be expected for reincarnation, even in cultures like with the Buddhist monks, where they believe that a child is going to be reborn as the Dalai Lama or whatever, and they go looking for that child. Even in those cultures, he says that the evidence for it doesn't appear very strong. However, he says we can say just from I think anyone who's explored different states of consciousness, which isn't difficult. People do it through various means: meditation, breathing, drugs, singing, all sorts of ways that people experience these different states, and we can agree upon them. We may interpret them differently, give them different names, depending on our beliefs or culture. But we have gross consciousness, waking consciousness, subtle consciousness, causal, and what's called the non-dual. That's where everything appears to be one. So the physical world is not separate from the inner world, the subjective. They're one and the same thing. So he says, well, we know that we can have a lucid dream. And so that kind of ties in what you say. And I find this quite compelling, this idea that, okay, so if, for example, if I was just listening to Alan Watts actually, said like, what would,
I love Alan Watts.
Say you're a baby, and then it's like the first day there was no waking up, because that was it. You're just there. And where's just like first time you've ever woken up, you wake up every day, but if you're a baby, well, what are you waking up from? It's kind of like there's nothing preceding. And imagine, for example, that you're about to pass away, to die, but you were in a dream, and maybe you would never even realize that you were dead because you were just in a dream, and maybe that would be it. Your reality wouldn't be, oh, I've just left this world. It would be, I'm in this dream, and that's it. Now we would think, well, no, surely the dream would vanish. Depends what you believe, but what he was talking about was that when you go into these lucid states, you do tend to experience or interpret what is there, definitely according to a large degree to your perception. So you see light in the subtle realm, and I don't know, I saw the light. If you're Christian, you would say, oh, I met Jesus. If you were Buddhist, you'd say you saw Avalokiteshvara of all these different arms and all this stuff. So it depends on what your perception is, but it's kind of like it's the same stimuli but getting reinterpreted according to a different perception, according to your culture, that lens that you have. Now, we know from quantum physics the idea that everything is in fact just energy, right? Taking different forms and vibration. So physical matter is still energy. It is at a certain vibration, and it takes different forms. Like I've got my hands and this, and but what about the emotions or the mind or whatever? There's all these different levels of vibration, and yeah, it's a curious question. Like I say, I just kind of remain agnostic. But coming on to 2012, this is what I've been. So I did speak about it, like I say, back in 2012, leading up to it, and there was all this, hullabaloo about, oh my God, what's going to happen? What's going to
The
happen?
apocalypse.
And when I spoke about it, I went into some really far out,
Mm.
really far out stuff. Maybe say we talk about another time. We're going on
I
into
think we
this
need to
stuff,
do
but it
another
was,
one, certainly.
oh yeah, we'll do a spiritual one. It was really far out stuff. But one of the overarching themes of my talk on 2012 was not, oh, we're all going to go up in spaceships, it's going to be the end of the world, Armageddon, or anything like that. It was, no one knows exactly what may happen. And it may be that nothing appears to happen at all on the surface, that it may be more of an inner thing that occurs. However, I postulated that even if nothing happens per se, and it may be difficult for us to detect that something's happening, and of course people say that's a cop out because you didn't want to make a prediction and it doesn't pan out, and therefore you're just making stuff up. Right.
Hardcore stuff,
and you're talking about woo-woo stuff. So I want you. Look, is the world going to end or not? But then it means, well, what does it mean by the world ending? But one of the biggest themes that I shared with people, based on a lifetime experience, but not just my experience, but other people's experiences that seem to correlate with my experience, and also research in different areas, like of esoteric, of mystical things, esoteric, spirituality, and also science, seem to tally together. Sorry. I was kind of connecting all the dots, I suppose, and seeing a pattern. And this is the pattern. This is one of the overarching theme that I saw, was that 2012 would be like a global near-death experience. And I didn't define exactly what that would mean, but I said, from what I was observing on all these different levels, it looks like 2012, the kind of the core of it, that at its essence is a global near-death experience.
Kind of fitting for now, if this is, with the Gregorian calendar going back to the original.
You've just hit the nail on the head. Now here I am, and I'll be quite personal, in lockdown. It was very challenging, as it has been for everyone. In my family, there was a lot of loss. A lot of people in my family physically left. We had 3, all within a short period of time, within a few weeks of each other.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And it was tragic, and it was really painful. And then we're in a lockdown as well, which has never happened before, and this is happening. And it's been a really weird mixed bag as well of looking for the positive amongst what feels like one of the worst experiences you could possibly think of ever having.
Yeah.
And you probably never imagined that it would happen in the first place. And I came across a video by Greg Braden. If anyone's come across him, really cool guy, wonderful books he's written. And
the guy with the white hair, he does like alien thingy stuff, doesn't he? On he's cool. I like him.
Yeah, his stuff's really, really, really good, really good. Anyway, Greg Braden, so check out his stuff. A book I read of his is called The Divine Matrix. That was really good.
Yes, yeah. I've seen it. I can't remember what they're called, but they're great.
He knows his stuff. Yeah. Anyway, I randomly came across a video by him. And of course, I'd heard about that 2012 is actually 2020.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that they were already saying this back in 2012, because we already knew that the calendars were out.
Yeah.
So rather than it being okay, it didn't happen, now it's 2020, this is a cop-out, let's claim it's going to happen again, it is, well, we said in 2012 the calendars are 7 years out.
Yes, yeah.
It depends which calendar because the calendars were changed. So it depends what the year actually is, and so it could be that this year is actually 2012. Now I was a bit like, I don't know, I've kind of forgotten all about that stuff. No. Then all these synchronicities have happened in the last few weeks, especially in the last 2 weeks, actually. And it's dawning on me. This year, not only a lot of physical loss in the family, and there's lots of loss going on around the world in different ways. But apart from COVID, which actually hasn't been that severe as they claimed it would be, the biggest losses that people are going through right now is people way of life. People are
Mm-hmm.
losing access to things they were able to do previously, relationships. That's the number one for our health and our sanity and our happiness. We are, we're beings of relationship. We're social creatures. And these things are literally like, this has been many, many months. And Greg Braden said the whole planet is going through a grieving process. The whole planet. Now we'll think, oh, well, yeah, but no one's really died, or not many people have died, or that kind of thinking. Is it? No. Death is not physical. Death is, and on a spiritual level, I believe it's not really correct to talk about death. It's like the third law of thermodynamics, energy just changes form.
Yeah.
It's actually, for me, it's a misunderstanding.
It's a mutation. It's like a metamorphosis rather than it's like
Yeah.
I always say it's like they've gone in another room.
Right.
You can hear them, you can have contact with them, you just can't touch them anymore. That's all it is. It's the death of the physical
Well, whatever
body.
we believe about that. Like, again, I'm agnostic about that, even though I used to practice as a medium when I was younger. But
we've got so much to talk about.
We do, yeah. I'm agnostic on that as well. But
we never know.
Certainly on I'm talking like on a real deep level, like awareness, like what we call enlightenment or non-duality. But basically, death is like one side of life. It's like, but you can't have one without the other. So death is not anti-life. They actually go together. But if you go to another level, they are not separate. They're the same thing. And one of my experiences of realizing this, one of my big kind of spiritual awakenings. And I say awakenings rather than awakening, because I don't believe you just wake up.
Nice.
You're constantly waking up.
Yeah,
it's a process that keeps on going. I've finally got there. I'm enlightened. That's not how it works. You've got loads of people now doing it. I'm woke. I'm awake and all this stuff.
The woke people are the most asleep ones.
Like that. Yeah. You started reading books on this. It might be like 3 weeks ago, and you're suddenly proselytizing to people that have been on this path for a long time. It's not a competition. That's the whole point. It should be a competition for any of us. Where have you been? You've been going down the rabbit hole for whatever, a decade or 3 decades or whatever, or your whole whatever, or 3 weeks. Doesn't matter. It's a constant process of revealing deeper and deeper level of reality, fuller and fuller appreciation of what truly is.
It's interesting you say revealing, because the word apocalypse literally comes from the word to uncover or to reveal. Yeah. So it doesn't mean about the ending of the world. It's about having something being uncovered. And it's like, I feel like that's happening at the moment. Like, a lot of people I've spoken to have been very much kind of entrenched in their ego and entrenched in society and the way things run with materialism and globalism and all the hypercapitalism and stuff. And they're like, no, this is just the way the world works and it's perfect. And actually they're recognizing that they are like slaves to the machine. They're slaves to the man. And it's like they're suddenly waking up thinking like, hang on a minute, I'm doing a job that I don't enjoy. I buy crap that doesn't actually make me happy. And I've been locked in my house, and actually the only things that I really wanted to do wasn't to go to work and to go and do all these things that have fulfilled me. The money doesn't matter, the clothes don't matter. So Laura,
you may be aware there's this technique that they sometimes do in therapy, where a person imagines their life, and what they do is they start to remove each part of their life like a building block, and they remove all of them. And in the process, they come to realize which aspects of their lives are that are essential to their existence and to their happiness.
Yeah. I think people are doing that
which
now,
aspects, exactly, the lockdown has forced people into that process of, well, what is really important? What is really meaningful? What is the essence? Unfortunately, I guess there's still people that are maybe thinking it's my latest iPhone or it's whatever it may be, or getting to the pub and getting wrecked again. But
apparently,
the point is,
sales went up in July, like more than beforehand. So people are kind of reaching out for that instant gratification, still, unfortunately. But
so a lot of people will. So if you're already in that before this happened, a lot of people wouldn't get the benefits of this. But for a lot of other people, it's been you've taken all that away and then realized, and you found a deeper, fuller balance of your life. What is essential, what really brings me happiness. Now, I've been doing this process a bit consciously. I've been doing a process, it's actually a recording from I Awake,
Nice.
Wonderful organization that do incredible kind of brainwave entrainment meditation recordings. Just those alone are life-changing. They were part of my transformation, and I recommend them to clients and anyone that wants to use that. But also they do some guided stuff, and they've got one that is called the near-death experience. And it takes you for a simulated near-death experience. And we've done it a few times this year. I've done it. I don't do it like every day. It's not an everyday thing. I do it every now and again when I feel out of balance.
Yeah.
And what it does, it seems to kind of reset. It just resets everything.
Yeah.
And it makes me realize what is truly important and what is superfluous. And then what happens is you focus more of your energy on what's really important and take away some of that energy from the things that don't really, really matter. Like, scrolling on the phone or being on Facebook or fighting with someone on social media. You start to pull away and you're kind of like, what really, really matters? What's really going to bring happiness and bring meaning into life? Whether it's connecting with, spending more time in nature, exercising, serving your community in some way, getting into spiritual practice. And what I was going to say, one last thing about the, seeing the time there, holy guacamole.
I know, I'm like,
about 2012, 2020. See, now we're getting confused, 2012, 2020. Is that I've been seeing this over and over, seeing this, I almost had like a fascination with the symbology of life and death and transformation, rebirth. And I've been studying this in depth this year, but also focusing upon it experientially. For example, in meditation, and realizing, although I already knew this intellectually, but realizing that this is one of the core of meditation, is that what it does, especially at the deepest level, self-awareness, infinite consciousness, going beyond form and attachment. That includes going beyond addiction, fear, and that practice of really realizing what is the essence of who you really are. So there's a practice that comes from in Vipassana, from India, basically neti, which means I am not. So you kind of almost like analyze what is me and what isn't. So there's that famous quote: I have a body, but I'm not a body. I have thoughts, but I'm not my thoughts. And you could start, if you keep going through this process, I have addictions, but I'm not my addictions. I have this need to go on my phone, but I'm not this. You take it all away and you go, well, what's left?
Yeah. It's like Buddhism, looking
and
to the observer.
As you keep funneling through that process, you get down to the core of it.
Which
and
you're like nothing.
whoa, I'm way, you're nothing, but I'm way more than all of that. And a lot of these things that seemed to be so important before, begin falling away and have less importance, especially as it starts to redirect you onto a path that brings more meaning and true happiness, because happiness doesn't go. Happiness is fine, but real happiness comes through meaning, not happiness is going to lead to meaning. If I do something that makes me feel good, that's going to bring meaning into my life. Okay, right. I'm going to do,
anything.
A line of this or smoke this or whatever you're going to do. Sit on my phone all day, on social media,
granny,
and then wow, I'm filled with a sense of deep purpose and meaning is coming from this. It's wonderful. No, it's the other way around. Find the meaning, and that will lead to true happiness. And 2020, I almost said 2012, I feel this is what's going on. I honestly do feel. And again, I'm not making any predictions, because this is what will start to happen. People will make predictions about this. But there's one thing I'm certain of, is that we are in what I said 2012 was meant to be, or would be, which is a global near-death experience. And that sounds morbid to some people, but it's not. It's a it's kind of realizing things. What's important to you, what isn't important, what's truly going to bring meaning and happiness, not just for you, because what really brings real meaning are also things that transcend your self, your ego. It's not just about you.
Like volunteering.
One of the ways to find happiness is to actually serve other people and see them happy. And that brings you a kind of a lasting happiness, a meaningfulness, that getting the latest device or, getting your whatever desires met in any shape or form, that will never bring you.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe that's a place to wrap this up. We've been an hour and
Beautiful.
a half.
I know. We need to do another one. We need to talk about more some of the spiritualism and esoteric, more stuff as well.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. Yeah.
We'll have to book in for another one. But thank you so much for coming on, Jamie. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you.
Yes.
If you've got any links that you'd like to let me put up for my listeners, so they can get in contact with you if they'd like to. Also have a look at some of the things that you've talked about as well. Some of that brain entrainment stuff, that'd be great. I'll try and leave the links down for people.
Brilliant. Yeah.
But it's been an absolute pleasure. Good luck, and I'll speak to you soon. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you, Laura.
Take care.
Bye. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.